Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
This Week at Work is the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, featuring experts in human resources and employment law to bring you practical, timely, and accurate insights so you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, July 25th, episode 288. Today, in an era where conversations about AI replacing jobs are everywhere, it's natural to feel anxious about robots taking over. But there's more to the story. This week, AIM member Nicole Koblesky from Rock River Valley Blood Center joins us with her unique perspective of knowing there's no substitute for human blood, just like there's no substitute for real human talent. Phil and Nicole explore effective hiring strategies, including how to hire for potential and cultural fit, and the importance of developing your team to be better than you. All this and more on This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Good morning, Bert. How are you today? It's kind of a slow news week, not a lot to talk about. I'm not sure how we're going to fill our time, but wow.
Slow news week. Yeah, we've got so last week we had the former president getting shot, and this week we have the current president dropping out of the campaign to be the next president. So yeah, not a slow news week at all, and we'll talk about that just a little bit on Lawyer on the Clock, just about how this shakeup in the presidential race could impact the labor and employment agenda. So, there's definitely a direct line that can be drawn from Washington, D.C. to what's affecting all of our listeners as they try to do the right things at work every day. And I bet Jim Plunkett is staying pretty busy right now.
Oh, he's got to be. And I know our members are too. I mean, our listening group audience is pretty broad audience, as you know. I mean, we have a lot of people in leadership positions that watch this program, plus one or two of your family members. And that's really what makes up our listening audience. But when you think about the job they have and the people they're trying to lead and the impacts and lives that they're making, it's a tough job. And it's thankless in many ways. Not many people get thanked for being good at their job, particularly in that human resource field or, top leadership field. Very few people have ever come into my office and said, hey, just thanks for being a really good CEO. And first, you got to be a good CEO. Maybe I haven't been yet, but who knows? It's just very thankless. But I want to just set something up. I want to divert for a second. This is setting up, Bert, for it to be an election scam campaign already. And you're usually the wise one on the show, and you like to make fun of me and things, but I'm going to share with you something, and I'm curious if you've already thought about it.
All right.
So we've had an immediate shift in our presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, right? Biden has nominated Vice President Harris. I'm assuming she's going to be confirmed. Everything would lead in that direction. There'll be a little bit. Meanwhile, what's happening? Absentee ballots have all gone out with Biden's name on it. Those are all going to get returned and put back in. Is that vote immediately then for Harris? Is there a legal stipulation that says, oh, that's a vote for Harris then? Or if Trump loses, can Trump claim it was a rigged election? Those votes were for Biden, not for Harris. They would have been for me. Or if Harris loses, she can say all of those ballots were invalid. They did not have my name on it. And I mean, we're talking about, potentially millions of ballots.
Very interesting, Phil. I think those questions and your paranoia that there could be some sort of shenanigans involved in the next election, it's really quite astounding to me.
I know I'm a cynic. But we'll see. Stay tuned. All right.
Yes.
Let's get to our questions here. People don't want to hear my conspiracies and the setup that's on its way. Let's see. So we have our guest, Nicole. Welcome, Nicole. Welcome to the program. Happy to have you. Nicole's been a longtime member of AIM for well over 10 years now, uses many of our services. We're happy to have you on the program. She is the VP of Human Resources and Administration at the Rock River Valley Blood Bank, which just does an amazing job for a number of hospitals in the Northern Illinois community. Nicole, welcome. Happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here this morning.
Very good. We're going to get right back to you, but I welcome you to join the conversation and help me keep Bert within the lines here. And we'll get right back to you here shortly.
Okay, sounds good.
We do have a poll question today. That question is, what carries more weight in your hiring decisions? It's a draggable scale. Do you lean more on experience or on potential? So we'd love to get your input. What's more important to you, experience or potential? And we're going to get into that a little bit deeper in our conversation with Nicole. So stay tuned for that. All right, Bert, are you ready for Lawyer on the Clock?
I'm ready, Phil.
All right, Nick, let's go ahead and pull that lever.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
So, Phil, we kind of chatted about it a minute ago, but I have to dig into it a little bit because, the way the polls were shaping up prior to Biden dropping out of the presidential race is it did look like Trump had a substantial lead in almost every poll, not every poll, but almost every poll, and also in the swing states. He was leading by substantial numbers in many of the swing states. And, we know what a Trump administration looked like for the labor and employment agenda because he was president from 16 to 20. And it was definitely more pro-employer than this current administration, which is decidedly, in my opinion, anti-employer. So we sort
Hold
of
back,
look.
Bert. You got to soften that edge a little bit. Soften that edge a little bit.
We look back to the Trump administration, and that's where things seemed like they were heading. And now, of course, with Biden dropping out, that means that the match, his depending on the poll you're looking at, has at least narrowed somewhat. And she appears to be a much more viable candidate than did Joe Biden. And so one of the things that we've seen just in the last day or so is that there's a wave of organized labor that has already come out to back Vice President Harris in her presidential run. So she's obviously second in command. Well, that's debatable, but she's currently second in command to a president who has claimed to be the most pro-union president in the history of the United States. And so several major unions, including the Service Employees International Union, the Communication Workers of America, and the United Farm Workers rushed yesterday to endorse her. And they had not all yet endorsed Biden, but they have very quickly endorsed Vice President Harris. And, it's very important that with these unions because they may be seen as a way for her to win over workers in battleground states who are really disenchanted with the Democrats after foreign trade agreements really took quite a bite out of their lives. And that's coming from that's a quote actually coming from a former chairman of the NLRB who teaches labor and employment law at Stanford University. That's not just my opinion. That came from a former NLRB chair. And so it is interesting that how this could shake up the race. Of course, we know, and we'll talk about this in a second too. We've talked so much on the show about Chevron deference reigning in the administrative agencies. If Harris wins, I wouldn't expect much of a change at any of the administrative agencies from a policy standpoint, but those administrative agencies will still be held to the standard that the Supreme Court overturned they'll have to adhere to the new standard when the Supreme Court overturns Chevron deference. And I think the legislature is going to have to play a much more active role. The legislatures become more important than the administrative agencies. So we will have to keep our eye on this to see what shapes up during the campaign and how they portend themselves. Don't forget, President Trump had the president of the Teamsters Union. He invited him, and the president of the Teamsters Union accepted and spoke at the Republican National Convention, which again showed that maybe the union itself isn't going to endorse President Trump, but a lot of the members of those unions do support the president. I think that, or President Trump, and I think that was a recognition of the support that the union members themselves have for President Trump. So really going to be interesting, not only just to see how it shakes up the election, but of course, as a labor and employment attorney, I like to look and see what impact it might have for all of our listeners and for our clients and members.
Absolutely. No, it's going to be a very interesting time. Okay, Bert, what else do we have?
All right. So how many times, Phil, in the last probably 6 months have I mentioned the phrase
Nicole,
Chevron deference?
He does this kind of thing. Like, I'm going to, 4 times. I don't know.
4 times. Well, I don't have an exact count either, Phil, so there's no wrong answer.
You have mentioned it many times.
Yes, I try to serve you up a softball, and now you're making fun of me. I mean, geez. So, all right. So again, talking about Chevron deference, there's a very significant development that occurred last Friday after our show. And the National Labor Relations Board last week decided to drop its appeal of a Texas federal judge's decision that struck down the NLRB's joint employer regulation. So in a motion filed with the Fifth Circuit last Friday, the NLRB dropped its appeal. And it was of a decision in March that this judge had sided with a coalition of business groups that challenged the agency's 2023 rule detailing the standard for whether 2 linked entities jointly employ the same workers. So while the board in its motion said it stood by the validity of the rule, it wanted the chance, quote, to further consider the issues identified in the district court's opinion in the first instance, end quote. I think we can all read between the lines there that it dropped its appeal because of the Supreme Court's decision in Looper Bright. And so what this really means, though, Phil, is that dropping the appeal means that the Trump-era standard that the board had sought to replace with its 2023 rule remains in place for now. So we're not sure what the board's next step will be. So the NLRB's methodology for determining whether 2 entities are joint employers is a standard that's flipped back and forth multiple times since the Obama administration, and that's what we talk about when we talk about Chevron deference. And the significance of the Supreme Court's decision is that every 4 to 8 years, the administrative agencies in this country change the rules on the employers, and it's difficult for employers to comply. And so the scope of this standard is really significant because it determines whether workers can force entities like franchisors or the users of staffing firms to the bargaining table or hold them liable for labor law violations.
So this is the upside to that decision is going to be consistency for people like Nicole and every other organization who's just really trying to say, tell me what it is, and I'll work on getting it right, but quit changing it. Let's quit moving. We're moving the target too much.
Exactly.
And I think the NLRB in this case has said, okay, we get it. And they backed away. Maybe wouldn't have done that in a different time before Chevron.
Before Looper Bright, I agree. So and just so everybody's up to speed, we've talked about it numerous times on the program, but under this NLRB 2023 rule, an entity would be considered a joint employer if it controlled at least one of seven working conditions, such as pay, health, safety, and hours. And the rule held that the entity could be a joint employer even if it only had indirect control over one working condition, even if it had never exercised the control. Even if it had indirect control but never exercised it, it could be deemed a joint employer. That 2023 rule had much more expansive reach than the regulation the agency issued in 2020, which required an entity to have direct and immediate control over workers in order to qualify as a joint employer. So,
And
so the
that's why
Trump
we have, yeah, I'm sorry. That's why we have Bert Garland on the program. He's got the information. He's giving you insight. Okay, Bert, we got to keep going. What
All
else
right,
you got?
on the lighter side, Phil, well, not lighter for the people involved, but maybe for our audience here. PepsiCo and Frito-Lay have been sued over Flamin Hot Cheetos origin story. So a retired Frito-Lay executive previously touted as the inventor of Flamin Hot Cheetos sued both entities in California state court for defamation and racial discrimination, claiming there's a smear campaign to discredit him that has derailed his motivational speaker career and a planned documentary. The plaintiff in that case, Richard Montañez, he's the son of a Mexican immigrant who got his start at Frito-Lay as a janitor. And he says in his lawsuit that he was the inventor of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, and the companies had been more than happy to leverage his rags to riches story to drive the product's sales and popularity, but that about 7 years ago, executives turned on him and began a campaign to deny his role in the snack foods invention. So he's suing them for defamation, fraud, misrepresentation, and false promise, intentional interference with prospective economic advantage, unjust enrichment, and a violation of California's unfair competition law and the state's Fair Employment and Housing Act. And so basically that when a Los Angeles Times reporter was preparing a story about the origin of Flamin' Hot Cheetos in 2021, Frito-Lay allegedly or did issue a statement to the reporter saying that, quote, none of our records show that Richard was involved in any capacity in the Flaming Hot test market, end quote. And after he reached out and contacted the company, the company also said that doesn't mean we don't celebrate Richard, but the facts do not support the urban legend. And so days after the article was published, Frito-Lay issued a statement saying that its earlier statements had been misconstrued and attributed the launch of Flamin' Hot Cheetos to several people, including Montañez. But the lawsuit says this half-hearted clarification was simply too little, too late, and this is the makeup of a finger-licking good story pending out in California. And I'll, of course, keep track of this one, Phil.
Oh, that would be a good one to watch. I love some Flamin' Hot Cheetos, man. You can't just have a few of them, you know.
You can't.
The best part is right off the end of your fingers when you're done. That is for sure, that part of it.
Yep.
All right. Well, you know what, Bert? That is not by design, but a perfect transition to Nicole, right? Because where did you say the claimant started his career at Frito-Lay?
He started as a janitor.
As a janitor. So it sounds like to me, someone saw someone with potential, right? And I want to turn that over to Nicole because Nicole does a fantastic job up at the Blood Center. And first of all, I just want to get a little information from you, Nicole, just about what we're doing at the Blood Center. Tell us a little bit about it. And then let's take the story of we're taking a janitor, and then he becomes, you know, a significant role player in Frito-Lay in the campaign of Flaming Hot. Sounds like someone with potential to me. So, Nicole, good morning. Tell us about the Blood Center.
We're located in Rockford, Illinois, and we serve 14 hospitals in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. We are the sole provider of blood products and services for our community. The scope of that is about 1.5 million people in our population. And in our role, not only do we provide blood products and services, but we also work with research programs to help find cures for disease. So we have an amazing team of individuals that work with us. From an employee perspective, we hire a lot for donor care specialists, which are our phlebotomy roles. But then we also work with clinical lab scientists in our roles, and we are considered a pharmaceutical manufacturer of blood. So we are also working to manufacture blood. So essentially, from the time that a donor donates blood and the time that it gets out the door, we are collecting it, we are making a product from it, and we are getting it to our hospitals and working with them to get it to our patients.
Yeah, and it's just something we expect is there, right? Someday, hopefully none of us ever need it, but should we need it, we just expect someone to be able to go over to the supply cabinet and have available what they need. I did look at your website this morning, and there's a warning: we're in critical position. We need more blood, and it's something that people don't think about all the time. But you do have people who are on regular schedule. I was reading a story on your website, and it was about a young lady that's worked there, I want to say 14 or 15 years, and she's referring to how people come back month after month, and they know her whole story with raising her children and those types of things. I remember when she was pregnant, and that must be extremely rewarding position for someone like that.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. That is LaShawn, and she's been with us now over 20 years. And
Fantastic.
we hired her back in the day without phlebotomy experience. And throughout the years, she's grown in her role. She's a phenomenal employee. All of our donor care specialist staff are phenomenal. It's very important in that role that they're providing positive donor experiences. And we have a lot of people that come in regularly to donate blood. And in that, with their connections, it makes a huge difference who you're hiring, what experience they're providing to our community. And we're very grateful for employees like her on our team.
That's fantastic. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to get you on the program to talk about, thank you for being on it, was that you really have a focus on potential, in some cases, over experience. Can you just kind of frame that up for us? What does that mean, and how do you look and identify potential? Because I discover that a lot of organizations will say, oh, you know what, just give me someone who has potential. If they would show up to work on time, if they could pass the drug test, if they can mind their P's and Q's and have good manners, I would hire 10 of those people right now. So then I send them over some people I know and say, hey, these meet the criteria of what you just told me. And they're like, oh, they really don't have the experience on the floor. And so they go right back into this space of, oh, I need experience, not potential. So just tell us what you do and how you do it.
Yes. So when I think of potential, what I'm looking for and have always done through the years is does someone have great potential? Are they a great cultural fit? And specifically with that, it's why? It's their why. Why are they interested in the role itself? Why are they interested in working for the blood center? How familiar are they with the position? And do they have a genuine, authentic interest in wanting the job versus needing the job? So if they do, it's very important, because it helps us to have, if we hire an employee with great potential, we have an employee that wants to learn, that wants to be engaged, that wants to be connected with the job itself, wants to be a part of our team and our mission. And those factors are very important to us. And those tend to be our more successful candidates and employees, both in the short and the long run. So in certain instances, for example, talking about potential, one of my best hires is now my HR manager and works with me. And in her case, she had great experience. It was transferable experience. It was experience. She did not have HR background. I've hired the HR candidate with 20 plus years of experience and thought to myself, this is going to be easy. This person's going to come in. They're going to know HR. They're going to know the laws. They're going to know employee relations. They're going to have already handled difficult situations and be ready to go. So I'm not going to have to spend too much time. It's going to be seamless and easy.
I've been in that spot before myself.
Yes. And I have found through experience through the years, like in her case in particular, I will always say she's one of the best hires I've ever made, is I knew her prior. I saw her in a retail management background setting and knew her actually for several years in that capacity. And when she applied for the position, I remember talking to her about how she was interested in getting into HR. She was interested to go to school for HR, but she hadn't been on that journey or that road yet. So when she applied for the position, she didn't tell me because she didn't want to put any pressure on me. And I called her in for an interview, and her why, her reasons were wonderful. Wanting to work and be connected with our community, caring about the role, having a genuine enthusiasm and passion for human resources and wanting to learn it. I wanted to give her an opportunity. And so what I've done is we've been able to go through our own internal and external programs. She's working towards her certification, but I have found it way more rewarding, and she is much more engaged. It's much more fun for me to be able to help give back. Having been in my role in an HR for 20 plus years myself, I find it more rewarding to share my knowledge, to share my experience, and help her be successful. And we have an amazing work relationship.
So
Because of it.
that's a great success story, particularly in the HR profession. So in your scenario where you're hiring all the time, you have jobs posted today. I saw that.
Yes.
How do you get to the why in the screening process? How does that happen for you?
Well, it's an excellent question. So what we do is we use the AIM track system, by the way, which is
fantastic.
an awesome system for us. So it's easy for us. It's very quick to get our jobs out and posted and start our recruitment process. So when I'm looking at our applications and someone's resume, in HR, as we all know, we can get a lot of applicants all at once, and you can peruse things through things pretty quickly, right? You can see the resume, you can see the work experience, what someone has done through the years, and get a good gauge on whether or not you think they may be worth the interview. But one of the last questions on our application is, why are you interested in working for the blood center? And it is after I've scanned really quickly at thinking whether
into, I think, in AimTrack, the quick app, right? So
yes.
you ask a series of questions, you design the question, and you're saying that one of the questions that you ask in the very beginning screening process on the quick app is, why do you want to work here? Because not every employer does ask that question.
No, in fact,
they're asking about their experience, not why.
Yes, in fact, we customize that. So we added that question, and it is absolutely one of the first. It's the last question on that, and it's the first question that I go to the quickest. So I've looked at people's information, and I look at that question and how they've answered it, and sometimes people leave it blank. And that's not ideal. We might still need to call them, and we might need to still learn their why. But it's very telling if someone wants the job. Do you want the job versus needing the job? Those are two different things. When you want the job because you want to do that, you're attracted to the position. You're attracted to what the role does. You're attracted to the blood center and what we do. Even if you're someone who's never donated blood, but you're familiar with us, if you've really taken the time to look at the job description, to look at the position, and you've understood your why, we all need to know our why. What is our reason for wanting to go somewhere? Because someone who wants a job is going to be a better fit. They're going to be a more natural fit, which is good for both that candidate, and it's good for us too.
Yeah.
No, so, hey, let me just jump in, Nicole. This is all great and fascinating. You've been a tremendous guest. Phil, two things. First of all, I think you want to take a look at your poll there, because I think the results are really interesting. And the second thing, I thought of a great idea. I think at your next all-day conference, that you should invite Nicole and her team in and do a blood drive at your all-day conference. I bet Nicole they would do phenomenally well if you did that.
Yes.
I would agree. And I know you have some histories of doing some exciting and kind of edge-cutting blood
Yes.
drives as well. What I think you had the name from one. Was it Weed for Blood?
Bleed for Weed. And thank
Bleed
you,
for
Bert, by the
Weed.
way, for plugging blood drives, because we need that here at the blood center.
Absolutely.
We always need blood. So yes, it's Bleed for Weed. We just recently had a blood drive at a marijuana dispensary in Illinois. Marijuana is legal. There are lots of reasons that individuals use marijuana for therapeutic and or other reasons. And we were fortunate enough to work with the Life Dispensary here in Rockford, Illinois, to host one of their blood drives. It was the first blood drive of its kind in our state and apparently across the nation. We made national news
Congratulations.
because it was a tremendous turnout. We were very grateful for our donors that were present that day, and we had a wonderful turnout, and we definitely gained a lot of recognition and a lot of conversation surrounding it.
That's fantastic. It looks like we have an average here. Nick, help me. Is it 3? We're seeing that
that is correct.
Our average respondents 1 through 5 is roughly about 3.
Yep, we are
pretty
3.
close, leaning more towards potential over experience.
I think that's smack dab in the middle. 3 is right in the middle. So somebody else needs to get in there, get involved, and get it off the middle. We don't want a middle. We want to.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'll be really honest. I don't see that practice. I hear about it. I know Nicole and at the blood center they practice it. I don't see that as a practice most time. I believe HR believes in that. And most of the time what I see is then we turn over candidates to the hiring manager. And I don't believe that the hiring managers practice that as much as HR promotes it.
Yes.
And because, maybe that's where the rubber meets the road. There's probably lots of reasons of immediate performance versus invested potential performance. Do you deal with that at all, Nicole?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because I can instantly think of a very recent example. So we had a candidate that applied, and on paper, the manager came in and said, I'm really excited about this candidate. They have the education I want. And the role does, there's certainly factors with experience and education and specific roles that we absolutely need specific criteria in order to hire them. In this instance, the person looked great on paper. And then the other candidate she was interested in had actually a fair amount of experience, but didn't have the education. So from a potential perspective, when we interviewed both candidates, the one thing that stood out the most with the candidate she liked on paper is when we asked, why do you want to work at the blood center? What attracted you to this position? Have you read the job description? Throughout that conversation, you could tell that the candidate hadn't really fully understood the role and or what we do, because he repeatedly said, well, I need experience. I need a job. So again, if you want the job versus needing the job, who will be more successful? Who will be more engaged on their employment journey? It's the person who wants the job. So in her interview with the candidate who had experience but not education, the level she wanted for the specific type for that job, she enjoyed that interview better. So she enjoyed that the candidate was a donor she knew what we did, and she was very excited, enthusiastic about the job itself and the organization. So when we sat down to talk about who should we hire, we discussed that, and I said, who has the greatest potential? Who is your best cultural fit? Those are key things to think about. If you want someone to be successful in your organization, and it goes both ways, right? We want to enjoy the candidates and the applicants, the employees that come to work with us, we want them to enjoy their work experience, but we want to enjoy having them here as well. And the candidate who wants that job, who cares about that job, she said, well, it's the candidate that doesn't have the education I want, has the greatest potential, and the greatest is a better culture fit. So can we train her? Can we give her the tools and the resources and the skills she needs and the mentorship she needs to be successful?
Right.
Yes, she said, I think I can. So in that process, in that discussion, she answered her own question, but you have to go through that conversation with your managers and help them understand why it can be more valuable to them to take a chance on that particular candidate, because we can all look great on paper, we can all interview well if we're good at it, but you really have to delve into someone's why and understand what their potential is to determine if you think they're going to be the right fit for your organization.
Absolutely. No, Nicole, I'm so happy to have the Blood Center and you as a member of AIM, because it really helps us with our mission, which is about creating better places to live and great communities. And we only do that with employers like yours and so many other AIM members who are doing great things. So thank you for being a part of our program. If you live in that region up around Rockford, Illinois, get out and go donate. And I think, Nicole, if you put on your list, I heard Bert say he's going to be first in line to donate blood at our next event, and we'll maybe talk about how we can partner with you and help you out. So put Bert right at the top of that list, and we're going to go from there. Until then, we're going to be back next week at 7:30 Central Time. We'll see you then, and go out between now and then and be good to somebody. Bye-bye.
Actually, I have a closing comment for you, Phil.
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Well, we had, you talked earlier about potentially we could have some family members viewing. Well, a comment came in here. It says, Nick is the bomb. He should play a much larger part on the show. He is the real talent in this group. Phil and Bert are a couple of boobs. So I would say...
Is your wife watching the program, Nick?
You know, she's in HR and she doesn't watch the program. No, she hears me.
Well, then that gives you the answer right there. All right?
Yep, got it. All right.
All right.
Be good to people.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/thisweekatwork, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere you are. Don't forget you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.